Welcome to this, I guess, last session of the plenary part of the conference. And the most important part, because this is the community bird of a feather, and, well, we are the community. So today we have a panel of members of this community, and you will be enabled to ask them your questions. So please go to the onlinequestions.org, and you have the number down there or up there. We try to get a panel that represents the community as a whole. So we have people from all ages, from all stages in their career. We have people who are users of the various projects of the foundation, contributors, developers, project leaders. Of many projects, I think I put some of them here, but I'm pretty sure I missed some, so you will tell me which one I missed. We have people who come from different institutions, from European research institutions, from US Department of Energy national laboratories, from industry, from academia in the US. We have people who represent the governing board of the foundation. We have people who represent the technical advisory committee, and some of them even both. And I asked you all two questions. So the first one was, can you tell us a few words about you? And the second one was, why did you choose to join HPSF conference today? So first, Ansar, you told me that you're a researcher working on nuclear reactor physics application simulation. You work at CEA in France, and you work with application for maintenance of application, but you're also involved in CEA, the project at CEA to contribute to COCOS, but also to try to make it used all over CEA applications and in France at large. And the reason you joined HPSF conference is to see what will be presented at the conference, to meet people, establish collaborations, and present your findings at the COCOS user group. Anything else you want to add?
Maybe just to say that, like someone said this morning, I got into HPC as they were HPC scientists by accident. I'm a physicist more by my training, and then I got to work with the French utility which operates the French reactors, and that's where I got into HPC, working on the software stacks and getting more involved into getting performance from what we're trying to do. So I think it's important to have that with the bias I may have from what I may say afterwards.
Thank you. Our second panel member is Nur. So Nur, you're unit head of scientific computing unit at CSCS. You have a PhD in applied mathematics, and you worked on parallel preconditioners initially. And now you switched to port code to GPU, and you lead a team that does that nowadays. And the reason you joined HPSF and HPSF conference is to encourage the adoption of standards, good practices, etc. So anything else you want to add?
Not really, but I would say, yeah, I worked for 7 years, maybe it's too hard, working with scientists to solve their problems toward porting the software to GPUs. And nowadays we are here we would like to, bring our software in HPSoft Foundation and seeking for, collaboration.
Thank you. So our next panel member is Todd Gamblin. Some of you might know him. He is a distinguished member of technical staff at LLNL. He is the chair of the governing board of the foundation, also a member of the technical advisory committee. So, Todd, you told us you were enraged with the state of HPC back in a few years ago, I guess, and that was the reason for you to create SPAC, to improve the state of usability of software. So it's now pretty well used, and to build on that, you co-founded the foundation, the High Performance Software Foundation. And the reason you're here is to build awareness around the foundation, to make sure that's a home for the practical side of the HPC, whatever that is. What is the unpractical side? You will tell us, I guess. And yeah, anything you want to add?
No, I think that's good. I mean, I'd say practical as in like the software engineering stuff, not the science, not the. I mean, we're about science. We're about enabling science, right? But we want to make sure that the software projects are healthy to do that. So that's all.
Thank you. Our next panel member is Bill Hoffman. He's the CTO of Kitware, the creator of this little-known project, CMake, that few people in the room might have used also. So same thing, you created CMake, you brought that tool to improve the experience of HPC users, I guess. And you work in HPC that is a challenging and interesting place for you. And now you're interested in collaborating with the SPAC package manager, I believe. The reason you joined HPSF as one of the first general members, actually as founding general member, is to establish sustainability in the software ecosystem for HPC, I guess. You're very interested in CI and performance working group, and interested in meeting people here. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, thanks. I guess I've sort of stumbled into my career as well, and started the CMake project. Actually came from a NIH-funded work to create a segmentation and registration toolkit, and much like Todd, I looked at the state of C++ building at the time, and it was abysmal and not cross-platform. Had a vision of creating a tool, and eventually that led to CMake, and in recent years I've seen the light of needing a package manager as well, and I've been really happy to have Kitware collaborate with the labs in advancing SPAC, and I'm excited for HPSF to be a platform for both industry and the labs and government to get together and really continue to solve the problem of making it easier to build large amounts of software. Because the world we live in is built on top of large amounts of software. If I go into my running watch, I can dig around in the menus and find, curl is on my watch. We all use curl in the room, but we've got to make sure all this software works, or this whole Tower of Babel is going to collapse. So, looking forward to keeping the world running.
Thank you. The next member of our panel is Angelica. You're a HPC env scientist at Los Alamos National Laboratory. You develop tools and solutions for the environment, the HPC environment there, and especially for both AI and machine learning. You're working on developing Charlie Cloud and contributing to the package management using SPAC. So you joined together with the team around Charlie Cloud, I guess, and to present what you did in these last few months. Anything you want to add?
Not really. I'm excited that I've recently joined HPC at Los Alamos as a staff scientist from being a student.
Thank you. Our next panel member is John Mellor-Crummey. You're a professor at Rice University. You're also a TAC member where you represent HPC Toolkit. Your research focuses on parallel high-performance computing, compilers, runtime system, synchronization algorithm, data race detectors, and in the last 20 years, you've been leading the development for the HPC toolkit, but also other similar tools. And you came here to interact with other people and to develop collaborations around these tools. Anything else you want to add?
So we've been working with the DOE community for roughly 20 years and working closely with the DOE labs. My group is very involved with the community here. I have one student in my group is part of the CEA working group. Another staff member of mine is on the TAC for SPAC. And so we're already working with people. We're looking for more collaborations out of this.
Thank you. Julia, you're the next member of the panel. You're a principal member of technical staff at Sandia National Lab. You are interested in numerical method for PDEs, finite element method, GPU accelerated codes, massively parallel programming, especially using C++. You work on the Sierra structural dynamics. So this is a 25-year-old massively parallel code and has, I guess, a lot of the issues associated with that kind of history. You're passionate about sustainability and sharing ideas, tools. So I guess that's the reason you're here to do that and hope that Sierra can last for 25 more years. So anything else you want to add?
I guess it's trendy to say that you accidentally are working in computer science now, so I'm also accidentally working in computer science. I started, working on C++, parallel C++ codes in about 2009 when I was in graduate school, and it all, fell apart from there. So, fast forward however many years, and I'm working on a code now that actually we've been really successful in delivering our code to our users on GPU accelerated platforms. To the point where they're clamoring for more of them, and they're afraid of the Sierra machine at Lawrence going away, right? And so that's kind of been a unique, cool experience on the project that I've recently worked on. But happy to answer questions about everything else too.
Thank you. And last but not least, Andy, if I can move. Yeah, here you are. You're a senior distinguished technologist at HPE. You're a member of the governing board representing HPE. You've worked in HPC off and on since quite some time, at least from my perspective. You've worked on many different fields, including telco, optical networking, storage, payment cards. And you work with customers to explore the leading edge of supercomputing and AI, whether this is the scale, the density, or the capabilities of the software. And you're here because you consider that open source software underpins the entire HPC and AI ecosystem, that this is not something that happens by magic, by default. It requires some effort, focus, and that, HPE wants to work to make that happen, and that being here, part of HPSF is a proof of that. And you chose to show us this slightly complex graph of the software stack. So maybe you want to say a word about that.
Sure. That's a graph that was actually drawn by SPAC, showing a very simple but valid production CPU system software stack for HPC. And this chart was actually made for a different purpose. So I want to say 95% of the little bubbles there are open source software of one sort or another. So ignore the colors, but that's how vital open source is to us delivering on your mission. A lot of this, I can't remember what percentage it is, but it's distributed by the distros. So it comes with the Linux operating system. But for instance, everything in purple does not, and in this particular instance was built by SPAC. So that's why open source is so vitally important to us, and HP wants to put its money where its mouth is, helping you guys meet your mission.
Okay, thank you. So now that we know each of you by heart, we know our panel intimately. The room is now yours, so I hope you're all on this online questions page, and we'll move to your questions. Okay, can I show them? Hey, here they are. So I will start with the first question. And the question is, as a project contributor not yet involved in HPSF, what are the ways to participate, to contribute to HPSF? Maybe, Bill, do you want to weigh in?
Or Todd, maybe?
Or Todd?
I've been deflected. Okay, sure. I could, yeah. So can you read the beginning part one more time? As a first-time contributor?
As a project contributor contributes to a project, how to be involved in HPSF itself? What are the ways to be involved?
Yeah, so attending the TAC meeting is one way to find out what's going on the technical side, and that meets bi-weekly on Thursdays, and the schedule's on HPSF GitHub. But from there you can find out about working groups that you could be involved in. You could figure out what collaborations could you do within a working group between your project and other projects within HPSF, and how you might contribute to any of those. So I think there's lots to do. We just got out of the working group breakouts. I hope people were able to find potential ways to contribute there as well. So I'd say start with the working groups, and then try to get to know the projects.
You can propose a new working group.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to see something happen, the working groups are supposed to be a channel for making getting critical mass around that.
Thank you. We have a question that has a lot of support. So are there specific gaps? Are there important projects you'd like to see in HPSF but that are not there yet?
I'll start while he fumbles for a mic. I think you've learned today, I'm not shy. I want to see a test environment, like Reframe, Pavilion 2, Ramble, something like that. And I want to see more applications. I'm sad that we've only got one actual application so far, WARPEX.
I would like to see some support for scalable launch. And particularly, I think that Livermore has this Spindle project, and I think the other national laboratories have SAD solutions. And so I would like to see some community growth around this, and I would also like to see it supported by HPE on the platforms and delivered on those large-scale platforms, because launching things with thousands of nodes is too difficult these days, and if you add tools to it, it's worse.
For the record, I didn't want to correct anyone. Spindle's live on Frontier now.
The last time I talked to them, they told me that they weren't going to do that. I'm delighted. I'm delighted.
I'm just telling you.
I would actually answer to you. Regarding your reframe as CSCS, we want to
I haven't
join
been able to find the reframe person.
The point is that it's only bureaucratic
watching
things
this
that
in
we
real
need to to sort out. But definitely we want to have a reframe.
That is fantastic.
And from my side also, we would like to have something like Firecrest or REST API to assess in more in a different way the machine. So with the RESTful API. Yeah.
Okay, and so we've talked about a bunch of gaps actually over the course of the meeting, and I wanted to harken back to something that Ken said in his presentation about VisCores, which is that he wanted more outreach to users out of HPSF. And so one of the places where I see a gap right now is we only have one application in HPSF, and that's Warpex. And I think they're a really good example because they have good development practices. They really value the community aspect of things, and I think there's more apps like that out there that we could coax to join HPSF, and they could be potential. I think they provide motivation for the libraries and the other tools that are part of the software stack to perform well or provide useful functionality for the apps. So that's a big gap that I see.
For me, I would say also libfabric UCX. I would like to see probably in HPSF.
And some of the other one is if we could convince some of the MPI implementations to join HPSF, I think that would be very useful to have that degree of collaboration and open channels with those folks. So anyway,
so I want to see if there's anything. Otherwise, I'm going to jump in. The other thing I'd like to see, it's not a project, but I actually want to see more representation from the user community, but not the sort of institutional user community, from industry, etc. I think most of the projects that talked yesterday said they wanted more engagement, more feedback. They wanted to find out, are they doing stuff that's relevant? And so I've got an opportunity to meet with one of our customers who's a large industrial user, and they actually want to specifically talk about HPSF. So I'm excited to talk to them next week about what HPSF can do. But I'd like next year's conference to have a significant industry presence as well.
Right now, there are two ways to contribute or to take part in HPSF, as a member institution or as a project. Does that mean there should be yet a third way for users that...
No, I think they should become members. I mean, open source software isn't free.
Okay, thank you. Maybe a related question. What would you say to a potential project to convince them of joining HPSF, and what are the things that are required to become a HPSF project?
What would you say to reframe?
Yeah.
So I already convinced them. So I said reframe shouldn't funded only by CSCS. Should be the community that should bring ideas to develop that, and also because there are companies that want to develop a reframe together with CSCS, but they are not very happy the CSCS is reframe only under CSCS. So having a neutral platform like HPSF would be great, because we can have our contribution and also contribution from other companies.
Others want to answer that one? I think it would be good to have. Yeah, do y'all want to?
I can just add that on the French ecosystem, when I'm very often contacted by people from the industries which are around the nuclear industry in France, where they want to know what we at CEA are doing for high-performance computing. And very often I want to present what was happening around Cocos and what we were doing around Cocos, and how we joined HPSF. And for instance, if I take the French utility EDF, they also have lots of open source codes like Code Saturn, Code Aster, etc. And so try to make them understand that they could have a goal in itself to join HPSF to see what's happening and contribute to the community in itself. So did try to talk them into this, to join HPSF, French industrials into this, into the stuff here.
I mean, I guess I would say, something kind of like what I said for the Ask program justification yesterday in the other panel. So, we're required to justify projects based on mission need within Livermore, but I think building a thing that's intended to be used by other people ultimately works out better for the mission than building something that is just for one scenario, right? I think you get unexpected benefits out of having a large open source community that end up paying off, manyfold in the long run. And, being in HPSF, as I said, is about building communities and getting people in the mindset to do that, right? To get your software used, you have to act like you want it to be used. And we're trying to provide a pathway for people to, position their projects to do that, to get the word out, and, to improve their development practices so that, people can rely on them. So that's what I'd say to them is if you want to build this community, if you want to build something, you want to make your project last, then try to join. And I think it could work out well.
So the argument I've used inside HPE is for, as you can tell, we've got Chapel, which is up and coming, just joined, is joined, but is working through the mechanics of it. HP is also part of the Open Shami initiative, which is pending. There's several other projects I'm encouraging to join HPSF that are HP internal, and it's all about saying, do you want a little garden project that only our customers use, or do you want something that's got wide impact, has got a broad footprint, and is used all over the world by thousands of people? I mean, you talk to people and projects about that, and mostly they're like, well, I want that. I don't want something that's just, my vanity project. So that's the line of reasoning I use, and we, all of the things we're doing are already open source, but we've got an internal process for like open source review if we want to push something into the open source community. So I encourage people to just follow that.
I guess we got quite a few good reasons to join HPSF. Does that mean that each and every project should join? What makes a good fit for HPSF? How to know if one of the project I'm leading is a good fit for HPSF?
This is me again. Okay. All right. I would say that, like I said, we're looking for projects that want to be used, and so if you're not a project that wants to be used by by external users that wants to support building a community, then that's fine. But this might not be the best foundation for that. I would say, like if it's just a research project, if it's just for right now, if it's something that you don't intend to build out in the long term, then it's probably not the best fit for HPSF. And so that's what I'd generally say.
I'd like to add, I've got a mic. I'd like to add that I think one of the things I'm looking forward to is establishing more of an answer for that and building up the working groups, the CI, so that when you go to a project, we can say, yes, when you join HPSF, you get this, 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 plus access to that community you're talking about of industry, which I agree that I'd like to see more of, or even if they're not members, try to figure out a way to involve external industry and to build up the stack of useful things that the HPSF is going to provide. I've no doubt that we'll come up with that set, but I still think we're in a formation stage.
Well, and the working groups themselves are targeted, at least some of them, are targeted at lowering these barriers, like you're saying. I think that's a really good point. If you're a small project and you're worried that if you start taking contributions from lots of people, right? Like one of the critical things that you need to grow your project is testing and CI. because you can't accept contributions from other people if you don't have those things, because there's no way you're going to ever know that it works. And that has historically been very hard for HPC because of the unique resources required for CI and things like that. So I mean, that's why we started with the CI working group. That's one of the reasons. Things like the binaries working group, making it easy to install these products, like having reliable builds and things like that, are on the roadmap. But yeah, I would say, we would tell people that we want your project to be used. We also want to make that easier so more people can say that they want their project to be used, so they don't have to pay the hidden costs of that, which is mostly like a bunch of builds and support right now. So.
Okay, thank you. Another question is, so each of you is involved in at least one HPSF project, be it as a developer, contributor, or maybe user. As a project participant, what do you expect from HPSF? Maybe Julien?
Sure. Yeah, I think I was really excited to hear that this was a thing that was happening when I think the Cocos team and the Cholinos team announced this at some point last year. Just because I've always been a huge fan of the open source community and communicating, and I think I put that in my intro or whatever, but like communicating through software is a really powerful thing. And I guess so along those lines, I would expect that, in communicating through software, right? Like, we also establish kind of guidelines for everyone from students who are working on HPC projects in grad school to engineers developing software at national labs, who've been doing it for 20 years, communicating things about code sustainability, interoperability, testing, software quality, supporting a variety of compiler tool chains and architectures. I think those are all really, really powerful things. And so I guess I would just hope that all the messaging from HPSF would be along the lines of supporting not just, the house of cards that is standing up our software on these platforms, right, as we've all been talking about, but also ensuring that we're not just the fastest to the wrong answer, and that we're doing what we can to make our software projects sustainable and be good under test as well.
Anyone else?
Okay. I think it's also important to see that for us at CEA, at the European level, to have a project which is being in HPSF was also important for us to be able to convince our bosses that we could go and contribute to the project, because otherwise, like Christian mentioned it during, I don't know, I think it was when he presented Cocos yesterday, he said that we couldn't just actually go to our bosses and say, okay, we're going to contribute to this DOE project there. It was going to be complicated for us. So having a project being in HPSF and being on the European side of the world was also very important for us. And the elephant in the room here is probably something which everyone has in mind for us, which is export control. So how also do we go to convince people and say, for instance, in my case, when I went to those different industrials in the nuclear sector, you go to see them and you say that, okay, Cocos is a very good way of going to port your code to GPUs, while at the same time you can maintain and continue using CPUs, etc. And they look at you and they say, okay, but you're telling us to go to contribute to something which is in the US, which is a DOE project. And then you tell them, no, it's not a DOE project, it's HPSF. There is something where you can go and contribute and get into it and get involved into it. And this was very important to have a project like Cocos in HPSF for us.
Well, I guess we have the elephant in the room, as you say. Question kind of similar. HPSF kind of started as a post-ECP project with strong roots in the US. What does it need to outgrow this? Or we have something similar but phrased differently, how to avoid that the national labs dominate everything?
Well, like I said, I want to get industry involved. I want to get end users involved who don't just run the classic lab systems, for instance. They seem well represented currently. I want to see people with different missions.
Yeah, when we were talking about hardware, the question was, how can the national labs have some impact because AI is leading everything and we don't have any impact anymore. And now the question is how to make sure that national labs don't dominate everything.
I would say, I mean, if more European will join, it will be difficult that American will dominate. Currently, there is already Jülich, CEA, there is Riken. Potentially, we will sort out all the legal problems, also CSCS. So I think having more critical mass will solve this problem. I would say the Linux Foundation is ensuring that there are, a fair, let's say, collaboration, I would say. I don't know if, Todd, if you want to add more.
There is CDAC, there is University of Tokyo, I might be missing some.
There's Bundeswehr.
Bundeswehr,
Yeah.
University of Munich.
Yeah, so I think the more European and international members we can get, the more, the less the national labs will dominate everything, I think that's a good thing. I mean, one of the points of this is to make sure that this software is leveraged as broadly as possible and that we build the broadest communities possible, right? Like it's not. I think it's actually good for everyone if that happens, because it's not clear to me that the best developer for a given project necessarily is even at a national lab, right? Like we get a lot of really good work from like our European contributors to SPAC, and I think that's true for other projects as well, like the partnership between CEA and Sandia for Cocos. And I think you get more good effort on the project the broader a net you cast, because just the bigger crowd is going to have more stars in it, and I think that's good for the projects. How can we avoid that? I think also making sure that the other members get some leadership roles in HPSF is important. So I'm really happy that, for example, Julien is on the governing board. And that we're, the more members we get, the more we can expand the governance, right? So, that's how we do that on the financial side with the members.
And as you heard, we've got elections coming up, so make
Yep,
sure
there are
that
elections.
slate includes people that aren't just DOE, and make sure you vote.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think one of the reasons why ECP is so represented here and has been so influential in the past is that a lot of money went into it, and a lot of money went into it from the U.S. government and the national labs, and so I think now that the ECP project has wound down, I think, as was said before, open source software is not free, and so I think all of us are looking at how to develop a sustainable business model. And so I think, in our project, we would welcome external contributors. We would welcome contributors from the vendors. We would welcome funding in any way, shape, or form from anywhere. But not Huawei. There are limits, right? But right, so I think that if other people want to shape it, they have to either put some skin in the game by either putting in funding or contributing effort.
But I want to make it clear, I don't think HPSF intends to be a funding source. That's not our role. So I'm not saying you were begging for money, and I'm saying no. I'm just want to make it clear. I don't think that it should be HPSF's role to. But it's up to the governing board to decide. But I don't think it should be our role to distribute, keep alive donations to projects.
But it could facilitate engagement with industrial
Totally.
partners who would right. So
Totally.
I think there are
And build critical mass of people to actually contribute.
So I mean,
and keep
the
things
truth
alive.
is we don't have the budget to fund software development, right? Like, so the way that the organization is funded right now, it doesn't have enough for software engineers really in any kind of sustainable way, and not in a way that would benefit the whole community, right? Like if we start paying for one particular project, then the other projects will say, well, where's our developer? And then all of a sudden we have no money, or actually very quickly we have no money. So. But what we could do, right, is in what we're trying to do is to build interest in the project so that other folks do want to either fund or, to, honestly, I think the better way to sustain the project is to get in-kind effort from those organizations. And because that means that the org has a stake in it, right? Like, and if they're willing to put in a developer, that means that they have trust in the project, which is what we're trying to build. That they probably use it somehow, and that they were willing enough to build new features into it to make it fit their use case, which is exactly what you want to make the project sustain. You need roots to be sustainable, and getting roots into all these industry places, and other, into a broader set of potential contributors is really what we're about here, is to build that kind of in-kind effort. So that's how we want to ultimately sustain the project.
Okay, so a question that is in large part related. Does a project being part of HPSF impact how likely you are to contribute to it? So I think, Ansar, you already touched on this one.
A little bit, yes, by giving the example of what I gave from the French point of view, I think, yeah, I give something about.
Anyone else?
Someone else?
No. If a project is part of HPSF instead of being, I don't know, a DOE project, or does it change the likelihood of you contributing to the project?
I would say it's harder to answer, depends on which project. In general, I would prefer if the project is under HPSF, definitely. Because, I mean, there are some standards, there are best guidelines. I would say also as a user, for me, I would say compared to the past, like Trinos or even Betsy, increase a lot the quality, so it's much easier to maintain on the system. So definitely, I would say, in general, I would prefer if it is inside HPSF. I mean, then depends case by case.
I think it definitely affects this for vendors, at least some of them. They've told me that, in the past, they've said, we don't put SPAC on our slides because it's just a Livermore thing. And, and I said, well, so if we joined, a foundation, or if we were neutral, would you do that? And they said, yeah, that we would promote it much more if that were the case, because we think it's a more reliable thing to recommend to customers. So, that's a real world example.
Yes, totally. And it cuts both ways too, is the fact that something is an HPSF project, it makes it more likely, it's easier for someone like HPE to decide to rely on that and utilize that as part of our overall solution, which then pulls in developers to do bug fixes, to do feature development, etc. So it becomes these two things are closely aligned. If you use it, it's easier for us to use, and and therefore it becomes easier. It becomes natural progression for us to actually actively participate in that community. There's examples of software, some of which has been named quite recently, where people said, well, that actually doesn't work in the general community. It just works in the particular instance. And I think one of the things that HPSF can do, especially with CI/CD, is making damn sure that everything that HPSF does is generally applicable and not sort of pre-opinionated from just whatever site happened to create it. And we've had years in the HPC community of trying to pick up a tool or a widget or a library from some place only to find out that there were assumptions embedded in it, in the build system, in its operational parameters that basically embodied the ecosystem of the one author. And HPSF can, especially when we stand CI/CD up, can, absolutely eradicate that.
So, yeah, we started from the contributing to question, but we also touched the using the project question.
Because I think they're intimately linked. If you use something, it's far more likely you end up contributing to it. I don't know many people who contribute to things they don't use.
So being part of HPSF is important in that aspect, I understand, but does also the life cycle aspect impact your choice? So if a project is a core project, is it more likely you will rely on it than if it's just an emerging project? Is that something important to you?
I would say definitely yes. And emerging project, I would try to use. I mean, I will experiment with this, but I will not use on the production machine, I would say. And what the other definitely, I mean, there's, you know, I mean, the policy that are being decided by HPSF ensure, you know, minimum standard of quality that's crucial for the maintainability on the machine, and therefore let the scientists, you know, work efficiently on the machine. So definitely, I would say yeah.
I think it also gives if HPSF decided to put like emerging, established, core, and established, it also gives people who are willing to use and contribute the trust they can have in the project and the maturity of the project too. And this is very important for people who are still they're not sure about what they want to do, and they're thinking a lot, and seeing, having that little badge and that thing on the project is important, I think.
Maybe I can give a kind of opposite direction opinion, in the sense that we chose to rely on one HPSF project that is not a core project. Just, what's the name of the middle one? Established project, one of them. And in that case, we said, okay, it's an important project for us, but let's contribute to it, because it's not a core project yet. Maybe if we contribute to it, it will be more sure, sustainable, and we will be more clear in the long run that it will still be there when we need it in 10 years from now. So yeah, I wouldn't say that only core projects should be usable by the community, but when you target something that is lower in the life cycle, maybe it's more important to also take your part in the development.
I would say it depends on the strategy of the center, because there are some things which are core business, and even if it's not, you know, ready, we will definitely invest. But I would say definitely depend on the strategies. There are certain things that are crucial, so we will invest, even if it's not ready. Otherwise, no.
I think that the life cycle it's really intended to indicate that we have a path, right? And that we're putting projects on a path towards more sustainability. It's not, I mean, I don't think I think you should make the decision based on the project itself, right? Like you should definitely evaluate the project. It's the badges are only designed to help. And really the biggest differentiator for the badges is it tells you like how used is this thing, right? Like and how sustained is it? So like core is multiple organizations are contributing to this in a real way. Established is many organizations are using this in a real way, and emerging is just that, you know, it's not that widely used yet, right? And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't use it or contribute to it. And in fact, like the fact that it's in emerging is actually is good, right? Like that we don't want to bring in projects that don't want to be used, right? And we want people to, you know, consider all the projects. So I hope the names convey that. Maybe we need to work on the messaging for that if people are going to, you know, rule things out just based on the badge. I think that's a bad way to make the decision. I think you should look at the project and decide if it's on the road you want to be on.
Yeah, that was one thing that I was going to bring up, is like that I think like we've depended upon Kogos and Trulinos, and to some extent I think SPAC, since they were probably like emerging or like pre-emerging phase or something, right? As you know, we work with you all on the Trulinos and Kogos teams, but you know, I guess I would hope, given that, you know, there was a program manager here the other day, right, that we wouldn't be dissuaded from using any projects institutionally that have a badge that's maybe not up to snuff or something like that, right?
They're not intended as a negative thing. They're very much intended as like, these are in the community, these are projects you should look at, and you know, they just, some of them aren't used as much as others yet. Yeah. So it's growth mindset. Like my daughter likes to tell me that her teachers tell her in second grade, and she's like, "Daddy, you just haven't done it yet."
Okay, anyone else? Well, in that case, questions are a good way to get answers, but also for me to learn new words. How does HPSF view the idea of co-op edition? So that's competition and cooperation in one word, I guess. If 2 or plus tools do the same thing, shouldn't one, both, or none be supported? Co-opetition.
Okay, at the risk of talking too much, I guess I'll take this one. Is anyone, since no one's jumping on it, but we have, so we're not trying to pick winners in HPSF. We're trying to bring projects into a collaborative community so that they can all find some commonality and be sustainable. And you may notice that in the list of projects in HPSF, like there's Charlie Cloud and Naptainer, right? And there are, we'd be willing to have like Easy Build in HPSF. There are lots of projects that are widely used that potentially, I don't know, compete with other projects in the ecosystem, but I think they're better off together. And I mean, I talk to the Easy Build developers all the time. We're in touch with them. I present at their meeting. We invite them to our meeting. And I think that works well because it means that you know what's going on in the broader community, what problems are out there. And as you saw in the Naptainer and Charlie Cloud presentation, like they're solving different problems. They're different approaches to containers, and I think both of the projects actually were very willing to say, like, here's the situation where you might want to use Charlie Cloud. It has this good feature, and here's the situation where you might want to use something else. And so I don't think we're trying to pick winners. We're trying to bring everyone together and maybe even like extract frameworks or lower level things from these projects if they get together and decide that there is enough commonality for that. And 2 competing projects can be on the same path and can serve different parts of the same community. So that's my answer.
And there's plenty of prior art for this in CNCF and Apache. I mean, there's just plenty of it. It's like Todd says, it's not our business to pick winners and losers. People apply, they meet the criteria, they're in. It's not about us picking winners or losers.
Naively, I would have said that having a project under HPSF, it's just about what I was saying earlier. It's having trust in the project. It's not about, I wouldn't have thought that having 2 projects would have been, we have to actually pick a loser and a winner in that situation.
It's not about saying this is the one true way to solve this problem, right?
Collaborate.
I mean, if there's any field that's about more than one way to do it, it's HPC. I mean, like, geez. Like, MPI, you've got 3 different architectures. John had a list, so.
Tab spaces via Emacs. You just name it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe as a project user or developer, I guess you're all at least one of that. Did the fact that the project is part of HPSF impact your everyday work? What does it change in your everyday life? Angelica, do you want to do this one?
I'm not sure if it changed much in my everyday life, but I think it brings like more of a community, and I like from this conference I got to talk to a lot of people and understand how they use Charlie Cloud and SPAC and their work, and by understanding like the customers better, I can also develop towards like who's using it.
Yeah, I guess, interactions, collaborations. Yeah.
I think for us, it sort of pushed the HPC Toolkit project into reevaluating our own development practices, and now we have all merger requests have to be approved by someone who didn't write the code, and we're trying to build some internal documentation to make it easier for others to contribute, and we're working on improving the quality of the software and improving our continuous integration. And so I think that it's been a useful tool to sort of push us forward to try and make our software more sustainable for the community.
So it has already had a positive impact on your software quality and testing then. That's fantastic.
We hope you think so.
Yeah.
Greg presented a little bit of this in the project update, but I mean, for us, like being in HPSF has been, I don't know, it's forced us to formalize governance, to really think about being more public with how we make decisions on the project, having a technical steering committee and intentionally making it broad, I think makes us think about the broader set of stakeholders in the project, and that's been very useful. And Greg said this in his presentation as well, but it's not just the people who are contributing the most code, but also like some of our biggest users. We put them on the TSC so that they could provide feedback on the use cases. I thought that was super helpful. So formalizing governance, I think we're likely to have a public roadmap. I think partially as a result of coming into HPSF, I want to make that available to people so they know where the project's headed. So I guess this is sort of a similar story to John. It just has, I think, having a formal structure, thinking about what people would look for if they wanted to rely on this project has been very useful for us.
Anyone else? And I guess the next question is, how would you like the vendors, or as a vendor, how would you like to participate in HPSF? So what kind of involvement from the vendors?
I'd like to ask what kind of involvement people want, what they value. I've already said why we think we want to spend our blood and treasure here.
I mean, for me, I would say regarding nickel recall and all this network software that is used, I would like to have a collaboration to understand better and fix the problems that are currently affecting the network. So. So I would like to have better collaboration in HPC Software Foundation, maybe understanding, working better on libfabric and on the network in order to, yeah.
So that, I think, means you would like more participation from some of the core communication capabilities like MPIs, Star CCL.
Yeah, also under NPI, so people from the vendors who are actually developing these libraries to have a platform where have better, more interaction in order to, exchange from the user community what we would like, and on their side to share, which are the problems and so on.
Yeah, you already named UCX, didn't you, earlier?
UCX and libfabric, I would say both, because there are, to be, as you said before, there are multiple ways to do the things. There are, these two big schools, so libfabric and UCX. So maybe one point that we didn't really mention, but when we talked about what projects are a good fit for HPSF or not, I believe one of the aspects is, at some point we said it should be vendor neutral. A library should be portable and even performance portable to be a part of HPSF. On your side, Nur, does that mean you would like also to see some more vendor-specific? No. Sorry, probably was wrong. So, the idea to have, for example, one typical example are collective libraries. So CCL, I say Nickel, but there is Nickel, Recall, all these libraries. So have a platform where we can discuss and we can, have a library can be performance portable and not be vendor specific, and also talk with the vendors, since it's something very related to vendors, in order to have a reliable network.
So I think one thing that would be helpful for us is if the vendors took our software and put it in their own regression testing, because we rely on these tool substrates that are written by the vendors, and we're reporting a lot of bugs back to vendors. And it would be better if they used our software to regression test their own software.
We've actually had vendors do that. So, which is great. So like Intel has some, they've started using, I think, some of the E4S packages in SPAC in their CI, and then also AMD has some SPAC tests in their CI, so it's been good. I guess for I'd like to see more active involvement from the vendors in the projects, right? Like, so I think they should be thinking about what are the HPSF projects, which ones do we rely on or do we care about in the long term, and start start using them, eventually get on the TSCs for some of these projects and help to guide the direction of the projects, or contribute pull requests to the projects when things are wrong, and keep the projects apprised of, I guess, how they're being used, honestly. Because like if you're using some of these projects to support customers, it would be really interesting to know about like those customers' use cases, right? And there's other ways that vendors can support projects. I mean, honestly, like that was sort of one of the foundational things with HPSF was like Amazon. Actually, we've had a relationship with them for a while because they provide a bunch of CI cycles to SPAC, right? And we've collaborated with them on the build cache and some other things that we've publicly announced. That's not something that has to be a one-off. I think that happens a lot in other like foundations. So CNCF gets support from some of the cloud vendors for their CI, and if these projects make sense in vendor software stacks, I think that could be really good. Like I know some of them will put like SPAC in the matrix of things that they think are in the HPC software stack. That's been really good. And it's clear that they're thinking about things. I would just say be more actively involved and get in touch with the projects, because I mean this is meant to bring the vendors together with the projects. And I think a lot of the vendors are actively doing that, so it's been good.
Yeah, I think just anything to make tool chains, libraries, profiling utilities, things like that more user friendly, right? More ingestible by customers, especially the tools that are geared for HPC, right? Because menial tasks like debugging or performance profiling at scale can be really hard, really intimidating, especially for newer folks. And so I think like the conversations that I think are really positive that are happening are kind of around, increasing the level of collaboration and making those things more usable and extracting the feedback from this community to just make those things better and keep customers happier in the long run.
And even if there's not development effort available, which there isn't always, I think some really useful feedback could be if you know that a project would be used more widely if they did X, Y, or Z, right? Then that's a really useful thing to feedback to them. Like we want to give this to our customers, we want to put it in our stack, but we can't because of this. That's a useful thing to know. Like I think a lot of projects would be motivated to at least address that as much as they could. And feedback like that really does help. Like and it's stuff that we may not necessarily know.
To know what their customers want.
Yeah, exactly. To know what they want.
Todd said it. Basically, to know what the vendor's customers want would be helpful for the projects.
I definitely like this idea of the vendors testing the stack and being involved with that. Oftentimes you'll see vendors using software like CMake or SPAC or something like that, but then when the users go to use it, it doesn't work because their tool chain hasn't been kept up to date with those upstream open source tools that are very popular. So more feedback, and hopefully this foundation can help provide that.
Well, I'm hoping the CI/CD effort provides a forum to do that, right? So effectively, the people like HPE and other vendors can lean into that to basically, I'll let that deliver value in terms of interoperability and proven functionality.
Well, I mean, the goal is that the vendors could eventually help out by saying, here's a node, make sure that stuff works on this new hardware, right? Like we could think about ways to do, up and coming hardware. I know it's hard sometimes, but the goal is really to provide an easy way for the projects to support the multitude of platforms and the multitude of environments that they have to. And if vendor involvement obviously helps there.
And if I can just switch one cap to put my physicist cap, like I was saying earlier. One thing I think this morning we had the panel about new trends in processes and what's going to happen. And one thing I've often been confronted with is as a developer of numerical schemes and parallel algorithms associated with these schemes, you may also want to see vendors to be able to test what's going to happen do some sort of co-design in the end with new schemes on trending hardware, which may or may not happen earlier, later on, but at least to get an opportunity to see how things could change for your own schemes later on. I think that would be important also for people in this community.
For that, I guess there are already some collaborations that happens between vendors and, let's say, portability layers like COCOS that are developed in HPSF. But these collaborations typically happen through NDAs that exist from vendors with operators of HPC centers, being DOE or elsewhere in the world. So does it even make sense to move that to HPSF, or is that something that will have to stay there and something different can happen at HPSF?
And are many of those NDAs actually required, or is that just the way people are used to doing it? I don't know the answer to that question.
I think we can help to try to push things as much in the open as possible.
Yeah.
I don't know how much impact we can have on any given company's NDA policy, but we can try to influence it indirectly.
I mean, as an application developer, sometimes we don't even know what platforms are coming until they're on the floor, and we're told we have to run on them now. So any more advanced communication, I think, would be extremely helpful. Yeah.
Okay, for the next question, I'm afraid to say a few of us will not be able to take part in the answer. As an early career staff member, what do you hear? And it's time to get those red cards back. What do you hear from old-timers that you agree and or disagree with, and why? And I'm not looking at anyone particular, but maybe Angelica?
I guess like technology is always moving forward, and there's skepticism in new technologies like in AI and machine learning. And I believe that there's potential in these technologies that people need to maybe accept more. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe a related question for the rest of us. As a late or mid-career person, what is one specific thing you learned recently from early career person? So what specific thing did you learn recently from an early career person? Wow.
I mean, lots of things, but as a late career person, I've forgotten them already.
You don't know
actually, so I would say that bringing in new people to our group has been actually really good, because they introduce us to new technologies, like ones that we might be skeptical of, for sure. And yeah, I think that's helped a lot. Like a lot of our cloud integration and stuff like that has been done by earlier career people. Monitoring for CI, using the cloud services, integrating that into our workflow has been really good. Yeah.
On my side, I would say a grad student from ETH introduced me to pins. It was really amazing. He's doing a great job for geological simulation, which is really, really stiff, and he's succeeding with pins. So that's my side.
Well, as a university professor, I think I always learn things from my students, and they always come with enthusiasm and energy and new ideas and introduce new tools to all of us, things that they found from scraping the internet and whatnot. And I can say that I've learned a lot more about AI tools from my students than from anything else.
Yeah, I think I would just say, like, I work on a team that's pretty diverse in terms of our levels of experience, like from basically like 40 years maybe, which is just crazy, all the way down to, just a few years of experience. And I just always have an appreciation for what everybody brings to the table. I think you have to meet everybody where they are. And so that is really, our tools have to reflect that, I think. Like the projects that we develop have to not be pick-upable I think Cocos is a great example of this, where you can do really complicated things, but you can also do really simple things. SPAC is much the same way, where like you can pick up and set up an environment pretty fast, but then you can spend a lot of time getting deep into the weeds and understand how to do advanced things with it. But just keeping our tools accessible for people everywhere on the spectrum in their career for all their needs is really important to me, for sure. Because I like to kind of hear both sides. The people who have been using the same tools and working with Emacs or VI for years and years and years, right? And then the brand new developer who's using all the new flashy tools with Copilot and their IDE, right? So yeah, just keeping things open for everybody and designing our tools and designing our future directions so we keep everybody in the loop and don't alienate anybody. Yeah. Try our best not to, anyway.
I guess I can say something I appreciate about well, yeah. Go ahead, Bill.
Okay, thanks. This reminds me of so I've got a new, not new, but yeah. In 2020, I started a program at Kitware modeled on something that I found useful to myself when I was starting out. It was a GE program where they brought in bachelor's level students, and then they had us work at the research center and move around different groups and paid us to get a master's degree. So I created a similar program at Kitware called the Open Source Software Technology Program. And I just had them present to the whole company a few weeks ago. And it was really gratifying to see all the great things they've done. There's like 12 or 13 of them now, kind of lost count. John Parent is one of the first ones, and he's done really amazing things for SPAC, getting it working on Windows. And it's just been real exciting to work with young folks that are learning this stuff. I can still teach them a few things occasionally, but more I learned from them, and just the enthusiasm and the excitement for the community here. So that's.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Todd.
I would say we have a lot of young people who come in and who ask the questions of the form, why can't you just? And I think that causes a lot of consternation among some of the more senior staff, because they're like, well, it's not possible because like this complication, and it's been years that we did this and this is like, and actually there's some truth to that, but I try to encourage people to listen to the why don't you just, because it's often the first intuition is like that's how you would like it to be, that's an ideal you could actually strive for, and if you get hung up on why can't you just, or why you can't right now, then I think you don't really get past the status quo, and so the young people drive a lot of change that way, and I try to remind both sides of that.
Yeah, I guess it's the explore versus exploit situation, and the younger you are, the more likely you are to explore and to find new things, and the older we get, the more likely we are to just exploit what we've been doing for the rest of our whole lives.
Yeah, I guess I cannot answer this one because I'm still young. I feel that I'm internet native or close to, but nowadays we get more and more AI or GPT native people, and that's just crazy what those young people do with these tools. And for me, it looks like something completely new, and my project writing skills might not be that useful for long, but we'll see about that. Should HPSF be a place where standardization of tools, of practices in HPC take place?
Well, what I would like to see is a standardization of some of the things that we depend upon. So I think if we look at, say, the CUPTI infrastructure for performance monitoring from NVIDIA and the Rock Profiler SDK from AMD and the emerging PTI GPU interface from Intel. Some of them have some good features that others are lacking. All of them at a time were lacking certain things like notifying us about threads that they were creating that we should never be monitoring, and we had to put in all sorts of hacks that said, if the following shared library ever calls pthread create, we're not watching that one. I mean, this is just makes very brittle software, right? And so our goal is to build sustainable software that's not going to break when they add another library that now creates threads. And so we have to have some firm foundation to build upon. And I think that, you know, now that we've got a little bit more experience on what it's like to work with this diversity of software from different vendors, we have a better idea what we need to know than what we did before. And it's not that everybody has to have exactly the same API, but if they all provide the same feature set that we can use, then I think we can make much better software. So I would like to see some standardization efforts come out of this to make it easier for us to build sustainable software.
I think I'm not sure how to read the question, because if I read the question on the face of it, it's should we pick winners, which is sort of to the co-opetition question that was asked earlier. And so, I mean, I don't think we should do that. I don't think we should say, like, all of a sudden, this HPSF product is the standard for this thing. But I would say it's a great place to have standards bodies or to have standards working groups or something like that for things like what John's describing, right? Like if we want to have an HPC interface for something, then, you know, we could, Linux Foundation does this all the time, actually. Like, so UEC is a Linux Foundation project about Ultra Ethernet. You know, we can host the standards working group either within HPSF, or we can find a way to do it, you know, within Linux Foundation or something like that.
Well, it's a great forum for actually proving what works and not burying it under a rock, so that can drive standardization from a position of capability, not from a position of sort of fiat. Like I said, I'm petrified by this question in terms of picking winners or losers. I'm not interested in that at all. But I'm really interested in things emerging as incredibly useful tools. So why would you want to do it any other way, right? And it works everywhere and it's well supported. So that kind of standardization, I'm all over like a cheap suit.
In a different place, we were talking about package manager and maybe standardizing some kind of database format so that multiple package manager can reuse the same things. Earlier in the working group, we were discussing tracing and maybe standardizing the hooks of multiple programming models. But not all programming models, not all packaging tools are part of HPSF. So if we want to take that on, is it really the right place? Or how can HPSF work with the rest of the world when it needs to for this standardization or these aspects?
I think makes me think of early days of CMake when KDE adopted it, and they had a rule. They had chosen BJAM, went down that path for like 3, maybe 5 months, and then hadn't gotten anywhere. The guy came back and said, I think we got another chance. We can just make CMake work. Went in there and did it. And they had a rule, he who codes wins. So I think just providing useful tools and showing things that work become de facto standards. And that's the kind of thing I'd like to see happen here, is to build the right CI tools, the right things, and help build the quality of these projects, so that why would you use anything else? You do want to get your projects out there, and I think that's one of the things you keep saying, is that we want projects to come in that want to grow and want to be a big impact on the world. And we want to create the environment and the tools for projects to emerge all the way to a core level that the rest of the world can faithfully depend on them. I don't know if that answered the question, but yeah.
There's a really famous webcomic about competing standards, right?
Yeah. Do you think?
I think I've seen it on like 10 slides within the past like 3 months, maybe even. But no, I think I agree with everybody else that leading by example and now having this forum to discuss like what works and what doesn't work openly is probably going to be really helpful in that vein. And we don't need 15 competing standards.
We clearly need 16.
Another question is, what can sysadmins take away from HPSF to help our sites? And maybe a related question, HPSF is kind of centered on software developments, how to get site administrators more involved, or how should we interact with them?
Well, I think Todd's demonstrated that you can take what was historically, well, the SPAC project has demonstrated, you can take what was historically basically an exercise in human sacrifice at the operational level and at the developer level. It was basically just, you know, hand-to-hand combat to create an environment either for you, your development team, or for an entire system, right? And SPAC reduced it to graph theory. Computers are really good at graph theory, right? So, you know, to a first-order approximation. So that's the kind of tool I'd like to see us, you know, if we're talking about tools in the system administrative domain, that's the kind of tool that I think applies, making things more declarative, making them more predictable. And we've had a number of conversations, I've had a number of conversations here that frankly I wouldn't have had or would have been much more difficult to have if it hadn't been for this conference. So about where we can go in some interesting directions here.
I think, I mean, did you have something? Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that I would like to maintain deployments at less sites, and have the sysadmins deploy our software would be great. We produce spec recipes for it, and if they're not working, then that's an opportunity for us to work with the supercomputer centers, to work with the SPAC team, to work with my group to figure out, you know, whether the problem is ours or SPACs or proxies or certificates or, you know, any one of a number of things that get in the way. And, you know, I hate to say it, but the hardest place to deploy software is at Livermore.
Nice.
No comment.
Okay, so we still have 3 minutes, so it's time for you to vote for the one question you really want answered before the end. Todd, you wanted to add something on the previous one?
Yeah, I had no comment on that. I think that the sysadmins, I mean, we have tools that are for sysadmins within HPSF. So I mean, that's one thing. There are tools that you can use at your site. We could, you know, do more to address, like, you know, standards for deployment at sysadmin at sites. I think we mentioned gaps earlier, like CI/CD. We have a working group right now. We don't have all the projects that sort of are associated with that working group in HPSF yet, and I think that's a ripe area for sort of development so that we have more kind of standard CI services and things across HPC centers. And then just some of the lower level tools, I think if we brought them into HPSF, we could do more to, you know, offer sysadmins something from HPSF. So like schedulers, resource managers, like system services and things like that. So I don't know, that's all.
Okay, so one question that is important. Are there any actions you'd like HPSF to implement to improve the diversity in the HPC field and in HPSF specifically?
Well, that's about us casting this wide net, right? And it's being an open and accepting organization of as many people as possible, not just DOE people, not just old codgers like me, right?
Well, I think there's more we can do, right? Like, so, I mean, we have, so for this conference, we actually had need-based registration scholarships and like travel assistance, which I think helps bring a broader set of people to the conference. And so we did evaluate that, and we had some budget for that. We had talked initially about having, like, you know, some sort of diversity working group. I would still like to do that, but I think, you know, in bootstrapping the org, I mean, honestly, we did not get to it, and I'm sorry that we didn't do that. I think we could do a better job of increasing like the representation of like women at the conference and other like minorities, because it has been very hard to assemble some of the panels for this conference, and to get sufficient representation across the board. So just bringing up those people on different projects and ensuring that they have roles in HPSF and actively pursuing that, I think, is something that we can do. If folks have ideas for more that we could do in this area, I think we'd love to support that. And so, please bring them to us, bring them to the governing board, and we can, think about what to do. We could even have a working group around this. I think that would be good. And, I'd like to get to it. Anybody else want to say something?
I don't know if HPSF is already big enough for that, but maybe trying to communicate in universities and colleges and trying to get more people from different universities and also about the role of women in HPC, etc., to join in the endeavor here. But I don't know if we're already big enough to start doing this thing.
I noticed like the panels did a good job bringing women on the panel groups, and I think that was like a good first step.
Yeah, I still think we don't have enough representation yet, but we had a little bit.
I think outreach through colleges and universities is a really powerful thing, because you kind of get in at the ground floor and you work your way up from there. And then other industry conferences and things like that, where they have similar initiatives going on, are really helpful.
Okay, thank you. So I think I see Christian here trying to push me away. So I guess it's time to finish, and I would like to finish with this question. HPSF conference is great. How often should we and can we have it again? When do we see the next HPSF conference? Maybe we can leave it as an open question.
I think we're not even quite halfway through it yet. So, but so far it's been fantastic. It's far exceeded my expectations in terms of participation and vibrancy, and I would love to see us do this on an annual basis. In fact, I think that the conference has got a potential to carve out a relatively unique role. There was another question up there saying there's a bunch of forums for HPC, and I don't see something that's similar to this out there. I see a bunch of I see some forums, but they tend to be about publishing papers, or they tend to be about, we're talking about real software that solves real problems, and how can we actually widen the participation base in that. It's not about publishing papers or stuff like that. So I also think that we've got the opportunity to be an umbrella conference for projects, so that they can say we can get critical mass of our users and maybe of our project and our users together without having to put together all the logistics, and they might only be able to put together a one-day conference, and that's a lot of overhead for one day and hard to justify. So I think that this conference might end up being one of the largest contributions we can make to the HPC software community as a whole. And I would very much like to see us continue this on at least an annual basis.
I think that makes for very good closing words for this panel. Thank you very much to all our panelists.